Hi, I'm Paul Beck with University of Ottawa Laboratory for Paleoclimatology. We have a global emergency occurring right now, undeclared by politicians, not acknowledged by most of the public, although the public is starting to come around. But we have a global climate change emergency. We're undergoing abrupt climate change. It's changing everything to do with our environment, our weather patterns, the way we grow food, everything on the planet. So the fires in Fort McMurray that incinerated the town is another data point. It's another city that has succumbed to the climate change casino. It was Houston a few weeks ago with the massive flooding, and now it's Fort McMurray, the heart of the Canadian tar sands / oil sands. So this was yesterday morning. This shows you the beginning of the fire here, how it spread over the time, and then basically engulfed the city. Very, very rapid. Basically, this is the city area in here, and this is the area where there were fires over here. This is from a great article, Fort McMurray Fire Interactive Map. NASA data shows fire invading town. An article just from today. So this is kind of mesmerizing to see, how quickly the fire spread. The winds blew it. It crossed a river, crossed roads, went into the town. I think the latest count is 1,600 structures destroyed. This is a town, 88,000 people or 80,000 plus were evacuated, and I say that these are Alberta's first climate change refugees. These people leaving their homes, getting their homes and city destroyed, it's no different than, say, Syrian refugees who experienced 4 years of drought that they'd never ever seen before. It was the worst ever in recorded history. It wiped out the livelihood of 1.5 million people. They moved from the rural areas to the cities. The cities broke apart because of unemployment, and refugees from Syria have spread around the world as a result. This is no different. This is just another data point to show, and it's happening more and more frequently and more often, and we need the politicians to declare a global climate change emergency. If I go down to here, this shows you the Fort McMurray neighborhoods. And these ones had serious loss down in the southern region. These ones had some loss, and this is to be determined. Now, if you click on the Fort McMurray fire map, you get this sort of image. So Fort McMurray up in Alberta, Canada, is just one place of many, many fires. Of course, if the fires are out, away from structures, then people basically ignore it. They're not aware of it. If we zoom in here to Alberta, okay, so there's Fort McMurray up here. And what I can do is if I go to satellite here, you can see this is where the tar sands are. This is where the oil sands are. The boreal forest has been scraped away in this vast region, and the bitumen underneath, which is like hot asphalt, basically, the oil is extracted from that. Notice there's a couple of fire points up here, but let's go back, and if we zoom in, you can see the extent here of the operation. So a lot of these people are housed in Fort McMurray. If I go back here, this is where the fort is here, the city is here, and you can see where the fires broke out, and you can get information on them just by clicking any particular thing. So this particular application, there's some information here on it, fire information for resource management system, firms, and it talks about the active fire data with a 375 meter resolution. So you can actually go to specific regions of the city and see what's happening with the fires with that data tool. This is a NASA image from a satellite showing Fort McMurray. It's the NASA Aqua satellite on Tuesday. So what you see here is you see this towering fire cloud breaking through. Where it's flat here, that will be the tropopause, which is the boundary between the lower atmosphere, the troposphere, and the upper atmosphere, the stratosphere. So most of the clouds only reach that zone, and it's pretty flat there. But the heat from the fire is bringing up these clouds, and it's known as a pyrocumulus cloud. So it's a cloud created from the heat and the ash of the fire coming up. So you can see the extent of the fire there. Now, this article here in Slate by a meteorologist is, this is climate change going on. There's no denying this. It's absolutely ridiculous for, politician like Trudeau to come out and say, well, no single event can be related to climate change. Yeah, really, you know what? The whole system has changed. Everything that happens now is under a different climate system, which actually Elizabeth May pointed out in Canada. So you can see the, what I'm basically, we had the largest mandatory evacuation from a fire in provincial history of Alberta. The scene was horrific. There's some images, various images of the scene. You can go through, you can see people had to evacuate. This is basically a city in the middle of a boreal forest. And there's only, there's a very limited number of roads going in and out of the city. So everybody piles onto those roads and, tries to bail. There's a clear link to climate change. Canada's northern forests are burning more frequently over recent decades. Temperatures have been rising at twice the rate of the global average, even 3 times the rate as you go further north, 4 times the rate. This 2013 analysis showed that the boreal forests of Alaska and northern Canada are burning at a rate unseen in the past 10,000 years. Okay, it's warmer, it's drier, and we're talking 32 degrees Celsius in Fort McMurray last few days. That's 22 degrees Celsius above the normal average temperature. It's 12 degrees Celsius above the previous high. It's unbelievable temperatures. We have a strong atmospheric blocking pattern. I'll look at that a bit more, but this basically shows a temperature anomaly at the surface. And it's incredibly warm in these regions and also incredibly dry. The humidity level was 13%, and that just sucks the moisture out of the trees and vegetation, making them prone to fire. Emerald ash borer and pine beetle weaken the forests, making them more prone. The boreal forests are basically in trouble because of abrupt climate change. There's no way this can be denied. Let's even have a look at what Natural Resources Canada is saying. Climate change and fire. Okay, the occurrence, frequency, and behavior of wildland fires is very greatly over space and time, but it's on the rise because of climate change. Right? They talk about climate change versus climate variability. There we go. Expected shifts in wildland fire patterns. Fire-prone conditions are predicted to increase in Canada. This could potentially result in a doubling of the amount of area burned. Plus, boreal forests are especially affected by this change. And the further north you go, the higher the temperature changes, the worse the problem is becoming. If I go to the Environment Canada, the Science of Climate Change site, okay, you can scroll down here, the climate system, evidence of climate change, warming like crazy, especially this year. This year is unbelievably warm. There's some risk areas here. They've got wildfire here. Wildfire, there's all kinds of risk to food production, local livelihoods, and health. Ignore this stuff at your peril. Deny this stuff at your peril. It's not reality. There is things, this is the Canadian temperature trends, 1948 to 2012. So this region here is 3 degrees Celsius warmer than normal. If we go to Alberta up here, Fort McMurray, up in this region, we're in this region. 2 is here, 2.5, 3 degrees Celsius is the temperature rise since 1948. Undeniable data. Look at this. Canada's already warmer, wetter, and stormier. Wildland fires, there you go. Right on the Environment Canada website. Forests are being threatened. Agriculture is being threatened. And then this shows the greenhouse gases, CO2 rising at record rates. It's rising faster than it's ever risen before. CO2, it leveled out, but it's had a strong uptick. A lot of this is coming from the Arctic. N2O, very powerful greenhouse gas. You know, and there's all kinds of projections and so on and so forth. And, you know, huge risk developing. We're undergoing them now. This is the CO2 emissions from Canada. Gigatons of carbon. Is this for Canada or the world? I don't know. Global, looks like global emission reductions. You know, we're in a period of, this is Canada's emissions. Okay, we got to get to this type of thing. We don't have any choice. Okay, sea ice is going. We could have a blue ocean event this summer. I talked about this in a previous video. Look at the number of wildfires in BC, 2012 versus 99. Similar things would be occurring for Alberta. Okay, the subarctic forests. Let's have a little bit of information about there's one thing I wanted to show you first. Okay, this is the North American seasonal fire assessment and outlook. You can Google any of these things. So the executive summary, let's look at the pictures. This is North American, this is for April, the risk here. Well, look here, Fort McMurray's right here. Red for May, red for June. Red indicates areas where conditions would favor increased fire activity. Okay, and the North American drought, okay, we're in a bit of a drought situation there. That stresses everything more. Okay, and there's detailed discussions on Canada, the US, and Mexico. Let's close this. Okay, so getting back to here, wildfire in the Northwest Territories, 6 times higher than its 25-year average. BC, huge fires. The fires have cut through the boreal forests that lie just outside the Arctic Circle. They can kick smoke up 10 or 15 kilometers. We saw the pyro cloud, the pyrocumulus cloud spotted by satellite. Boreal forests, we're getting wildfires at a frequency that outstrips any previous period in the last 10,000 years. That's from a study on Yukon Flats in Alaska. Boreal forests cover 10% of the Earth's land surface, account for about 1/3 of all the carbon stored in the soils and biomass. They're subarctic, they sit atop permafrost. Fires destroy the forests on top of the permafrost, and the permafrost thaws out, putting more CO2 and methane into the atmosphere. We are in a climate emergency. There's no denying it at this stage. You know, they talk about pine beetle, they talk about heat waves and wildfires in this particular article. Moving forward, this is the climate reanalyzer, and if you look at the temperature anomaly, look at the temperatures here. Okay, 20 degrees plus warmer than normal. Look at the jet streams here. You get a trough here, cold air coming down, you get a ridge here. The ridge is the reason, this persistent ridge is the reason why it's so hot and dry around Fort McMurray area. This is due to climate change. The waves of these jet streams are much higher amplitude than before. This is another view. This is Earth Null School. So this area here is roughly where Fort McMurray is, 30 degrees Celsius. This is data from just yesterday. Today, actually. This is on the surface. If we look at the 250 millibar pressure and the winds, then we can see the jet stream. So you get this jet stream coming here, and there's a ridge here. Now the jet stream is extremely fractured and broken. Okay, it's extremely wavy. It shouldn't be this meridional. It shouldn't have this much change in the north-south direction. So wildfires, you know, hotter years have more fires. I mean, that's pretty clear. You know, you just go to Google Images, look at wildfire images, and have a look at, do some research yourself. It's time to bury the Alberta tar sands. I mean, we can rebuild Fort McMurray, start pulling more oil out, but oil's a dying industry. The world is moving away from oil to renewables, to every other thing but fossil fuels as quickly as possible, because we have to stop burning fossil fuels. We've changed the chemistry of the atmosphere and oceans, and we have to try to restore stability to the system. There's one last thing that I want to show you. This is an image, a poster that I generated from many years ago. Greenhouse gas is up, warming up. Sea ice melts, Arctic warming amplified methane. You get a cycle here. Jet stream moves and bends, slows down, extreme weather occurs. Then crops fail, fires. Greenhouse